This landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazil was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO classified. UFO classified. No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Well, happy Fantopia Friday, my friends. I am so happy to report to you that last week's show was actually the largest show that I have had, and there were people listening from 50 different countries. So that shows you not only is the show growing, but it's also the topic at hand, which last week was some of the sexism and incompetence in the field is becoming so prevalent that we need to take a stand. We need to address these issues, and we're doing that. We are seeing a younger generation who wants to so desperately come into this field, stand up and say, this isn't right, and we have the obligation to help correct these situations and to bring in some sort of standardization, professional ethics, and guidelines. And, we got to spruce it up a little bit because this subject is the most important subject that we will ever have to deal with. And I mean that. So I want all of you to get good information. Thanks for spreading the word about the show. And I want to thank my friends, everyone in the chat room. It has just been absolutely crazy the past couple of weeks. Jeff and Susan and Gil and everybody. You guys, it means so much to me to look in the chat room and see you there. Not only has this week been exciting in the UFO drama world, we had more fallout from MUFON with the resignation of Alabama State Director Rich Hoffman, but then we also had a very interesting 60 Minutes interview with aerospace tycoon Bob Bigelow. Now, for some of you who don't know Bob Bigelow, you should definitely read up on him. He is or was the owner of Skinwalker Ranch and has spent more than anyone in the world to research the topic. He has worked with people like Hal Puthoff, Jacques Vallée, just to name a few, Kit Green, all of these wonderful, talented people and they've all, done this for decades. It's very important work. His statements on the show, however, when he was asked about the UFO phenomenon were very powerful. In fact, I think my jaw hit the floor because not only was he on prime time, but he was making a very blanket statement that, yes, UFOs are real and they are here. They are right under our noses. When the reporter asked what his feelings were, if anybody would care in his industry or elsewhere, if he was coming out and saying this, he said point blank, I don't care because I know what reality is. And I think that is probably one of the most profound things that has happened in this work for a long time. And another thing that was really powerful that happened was a New York Times article that came out back in April. And my guest tonight had something to do with that because she was the focus of the article. And I will tell you, I went over to my mom's, and my mom takes the New York Times every day. And my mom said, look at this. And she had the article in her hand. And I was so thrilled for Cheryl to have this article talking about her book, talking about this subject, getting it mainstream. This is a big accomplishment. The title of the article is People Are Seeing UFOs Everywhere, and this book proves it. You can go to the New York Times and look at this article, and you can also see it on UFO Classified Facebook page because I post that. But I happen to think that Cheryl is just a really, brilliant and dedicated human being, and I'm so happy to have her here. Cheryl Costa is a former military technician and aerospace analyst, and with her wife, Linda Miller Costa, who was a librarian and a former librarian at the National Academy of Sciences, NASA, and the EPA, which is really, really cool. But both of them wrote this extensive book, which we're going to dig into tonight. She is a native and resident of upstate New York. First saw her first UFO sighting at 12. She's a military veteran, and I mean her resume is just amazing and impeccable. And Cheryl, I'm just going to get you right in here to just tell us. And thank you for coming on.
Oh, I've been excited about doing this for weeks now.
I think the world of you, and to know that you and your wife have worked so incredibly hard to collect data and to put it in one place for all of us is that's a really cool thing.
Well, I think what's interesting, a lot of people think I put all the sightings in there, and I didn't. What we did was we simply took both databases. Well, we did them one at a time, and we sanitized the data because there was a lot of stuff in there that made it so you couldn't sort it or anything like that. Cleaned all that stuff up, and then we added county data, which neither database really had. MUFON does have it, but it was pretty messy because it was dependent upon the person who made the sighting to put in what county they were in, and most of them didn't know. And so we put in county data, and for the first time, we've got 121,036 records from 2001 to 2015 that we can literally drill down to the county level. And right now, I'm in a process of sanitizing the city aspect of it. I'm 20% in. That's 20% into 121,000 records, which means I have to touch every single city. The spellings are messed up. The cases are messed up. But when I'm done, we'll be able to drill down to, you pick a county, I'll be able to tell you exactly what municipalities and what their counts were.
Oh my gosh. Wow. How do you have the patience for that? That's incredible.
Well, I lived in a Buddhist monastery for 7 years, and they taught me a lot.
Maybe I need to move to a Buddhist monastery.
We've got a Buddhist household. Linda's Zen, and I'm Orthodox Tibetan. So we have some extremely loud Dharma arguments sometimes, but because we come at it from two totally different perspectives. And but the bottom line is that as soon as I get the city part straightened out, probably another couple of weeks. Is I can only do about 10,000 a day right now. It's really tedious work. And there's no app for this, trust me. This is old school manual Excel editing. But as soon as I do get that done, as soon as the cities are stable, I'll be able to add latitude and longitude information. So this database is going to go up special. Real special. We'll be able to do a report and against a date in a county or a city or we'll say a county, and we'll have latitude and longitude information, not necessarily of the sighting itself, but for the little burg or whatever place it was.
That's incredible. That's important.
That's going to help an investigator. I've already had MUFON investigators reach out to me and say, wow, this is terrific. In 5 minutes, I was able to look this up in your book. It would have taken me hours in CMS,
Well, I mean, and that's important. And that's one of the things that I was wondering when I was involved in MUFON is, after 50 years, why hasn't anybody done this? So thank you from all of us.
Well, that's the goofy thing. In 2014, actually it was February 2015, I did a talk at the International UFO Congress. And I was the only person there that had any kind of charts and graphs. And I hadn't even done the crunch on New York State. I just had some counties that I had been doing. I wrote, and I still do. For 3.5 years now, I've written New York skies for the Syracuse New Times in Syracuse, New York. It can be found online. And like your show, I've got readership all over the planet. And it was interesting. And I had a professor by the name of Gordon Spear, who's a retired astronomy professor from Sonoma University in California, came up to me and he said, do you have the ability to drill down to the county level? And I asked him why, and he said he was working on something with an archaeoastronomy problem in the Hudson Valley. And
interesting.
I said, wow, there's these caves down there that were made by an intelligence. They were not natural caves. And he literally had the information about their locations and everything. Literally, they got a zip code, lat and lawn. He's got all of that. And he needed county sighting information. I told him this is at a mixer at the convention. I told him, well, that's a tall order, but let me see what I can do. And I did New York State. It was 4,400 records at the time, and it took us 5 months. We didn't know what we were doing. Okay, neither of us did. And entering the county data was like, look one up, put it in, look one up, put it in. It took forever. And then we developed a faster process. We wrote down our processes. We're both former Beltway. They call in Washington D.C. They call people like Linda and myself Beltway bandits. She was a contract librarian. She was the head librarian at the Environmental Protection Agency for 15 years.
Wow.
And some stories. Her advice to everyone: don't buy coastal property and don't drink bottled water. Okay, but that's her recommendation to everyone. But we sat down and once we figured out how to do New York State, we started showing some of our charts and graphs to people here in New York State that were MUFON investigators, things like this. And they all knew about, like in New York State, Lake Erie effect. Over by Lake Erie, there was all kinds of sightings in Lake Erie and the Niagara frontier. Everybody knew about that. What they didn't know was there was a similar pattern on Lake Ontario, but until I crunched the data and got county data and showed that Monroe County, New York had almost as much as Erie did, no one knew. For years, we were believing everybody that said Pine Bush down in the Hudson Valley in Orange County was the capital of UFOs in New York. No, they're not. Suffolk County, Long Island is. And it's the top county in New York for UFO sightings. And there were 5 other counties that had more sightings than Orange County did anyway. So numbers were proving things out. And Linda and I sat down over a burger and a beer at our favorite pub in the October of 2015. I said, look at all the wild new patterns that nobody knew about here in New York State. And we got this devious look on our faces and said, what would happen if we did the entire country? And we both sat there and stared at each other like, are you nuts? And then we said, it'd probably take us at least a year to do it. It took us 16 months, but we've got an incredible body of work and we're really proud of it.
Oh, I don't blame you. That is exactly what we've needed. And I just commend you for doing that because that takes a lot of perseverance and dedication. And like you said, it is really tedious.
Well, you know how you said nobody, is it funny that nobody ever did this thing before? And by the way, what we did was they combined Newfork and MUFON together. We had to do some manipulations, but once we got them matched up in Excel, we were able to blend them together. And nobody, what surprised us was nobody had ever done this. And
wow.
And we said, why? Why hadn't anybody ever crunched this data like this? And granted, there have been some people who dump all the Newfork data out and from the time of Babylon, I guess, all the way through to now. And there was that PhD student says, "Wow, they've been going up since the 20s, But the goofy thing is that you got to take some other stuff into account. You got to take into account, give you an example. Prior to the 1980s, UFO data was collected usually by a handful of people, had little centers of collection, and this stuff was sent. MUFON was one of them since 1968. People would mail in clippings from their newspapers. They would fax in information. They would call long distance into an answering machine and leave the information, that kind of thing, and fax it in, that kind of thing. And that's all it was up until about the early mid 80s, and then people started getting on the original America Online and CompuServe, a couple of those dial-up services. Okay, people started having connectivity. As we got towards the early 90s, different geeks out there started putting up bulletin board systems. And again, information was able to be moved along. And you can start seeing the counts following this technical progression through the 80s and 90s. By the late 90s, we're coming into a period where people are coming off of dial-up, and at least in the bigger metropolitan areas, they have broadband. Comcast and Stars and Time Warner were available. And you can see in the 2001 to 2015 charts, which is where we did this, and I'll explain why in a minute, you see three bumping waves where the numbers go up. And we've been able to correlate that partially to the increase of the technology being available in first metropolitan areas, then out into bigger regional areas, and then out into more rural areas. And we compared that to an industry chart about the availability of broadband through the 90s up into the 2000s. And it tracks with it. Now, if you draw a line through there and take into account these bumps, you can see that there is an increase in UFO sightings, but the big jumps, when you just look at the raw charts, suggest that they're really big jumps, and that's not necessarily the case. It's what we call in statistics an artifact of reporting.
Okay.
We chose 2001 to 2015 for a reason. You've probably noticed this in the UFO community. There's an awful lot of, you go to a convention and it was like, crash this, crash that. It was like a golden oldie station. The best UFO crashes from the 40s, 50s, and 60s, And
Amen, sister. You're singing, you're preaching to the choir.
Okay. And so Linda and I looked at this and said, okay, the numbers were starting to get stable about 98, 99. And we said, wait a minute, let's just do a 21st century sample here. We didn't take 2000. We took 2001. That's officially the first year of the 21st century. The other reason we selected it is because after 9/11, the government told us to report what you see. And that's what people did. And I think that's another reason we have a lot of this stuff reported.
That's interesting. Wow. So, I mean, what are your, like, with the different areas where you're seeing these hot spots? I mean, what are some of the commonalities?
Well, okay. Let me give you a couple of commonalities, because the bigger metropolitan areas are hot spots because you got population density. It's not completely driven by population, though. Give you an example. Well, California is number one, and everybody, for the last 2 months, every time I get a reporter on the phone, they say to me, well, California's got the population. That's why. No, that's not necessarily the case. Something else is going on with California. 15,837. Okay, 36, I'm sorry. And Florida, the next one, number 2, is 7,787. Texas, number 3, is 7,058. Now, let's just take Florida and Texas for a minute. They're both in the 7,000s there. Florida has half the population of Texas. And it has more numbers, slightly more numbers. Okay. And we saw that in the book. I actually did a chart where I showed I put the population bar chart in there, and then I showed the numbers. And you see that there are states that theoretically should have more because they get more population, and they're equal to a state that has half or a third of the population. So population isn't always the driver. Other people would also look at the data and say, well, they're all around like New York and Chicago and, Los Angeles. And I said, well, yeah, okay. Is it the chicken or the egg situation? Are they being counted because there are more people there to see them? Or is it because there's lots of people there and the UFOs are interested in the people?
Right.
I'll give you something we discovered in New York when we did that back in 2015. We picked a county in New York City, the actual New York City, that had almost as many as Suffolk County, Long Island. Well, and everybody was telling me New York City's tops. Well, wait a minute now. They got 2.5 million persons per sighting. You go out to Suffolk County, we only had 30. It's a bedroom community, and it's only 32,000 people per sighting. Okay, so population isn't always the driver.
And I mean, to me, that's really interesting. And I just have to interrupt you because I'm thinking of, like a place like Skinwalker Ranch or the Uinta Basin. And that place is, it is off the hook with
Do you know
sightings.
what Skinwalker? Do you know what state and county that's in?
That is in Uinta County. It's in Utah.
It's in Utah. Okay, give me a moment. I got the book right here. I've got my copy of the book is completely destroyed here. We've used it so much. The electronic version is hard to bring it up, and that's another thing. We did not make a Kindle version because the charts, graphs, and tables in this thing's got all the charm of a bank ledger. But if you know what you're looking for, it's got the secrets of the universe.
Oh, I love it.
The county, what was the county again?
Oh, it's Duchesne County. It's Duchesne County, and it is
Duchesne County. Got it. It had nine sightings in the 15 years.
And the interesting thing is, to me, you've got somebody like Junior Hicks who was there from the 60s. He's still alive, and he's collected 700 reports in the time that he was there, and but yet none of those are entered into a database, and that's so unfortunate. And you wonder how many little places like this that are, remote have recurrent sightings, frequent sightings, and because there's nobody there to actually document them, we get
that is an issue.
Mix. Yep.
Now, there's another thing we noticed. One of the first things we noticed with the data, we noticed that there was it starts going up, and then you get to 2008, and it spikes. If you go into certain individual states, Michigan, Texas is a real good one. It's like almost off the chart. Okay, why did that year spike? Well, I did a little bit of research, and I got talking to John Ventry from MUFON. And he's no longer with them, but at the time he was. And he told me that in 2008, MUFON had done a documentary, I believe it was on the Discovery Channel. And there was a series of some sort, and one of them was about UFOs. And because of that visibility to that reporting service, there's a jump. So what I did was when we got all the numbers crunched, we did a chart because we actually added a column into the database where we, if it was from MUFON, it's labeled MUFON. If it was from NUFORC, it was NUFORC. Okay, so I was able to literally break out separate charts for each service, and I overlaid them on the same graph. And you see NUFORC going along on a nice steady creep upwards. Okay, you see MUFON slight about 20 to 30% less, creeping along right under it, and then it hits 2008. It shoots up about 30 points, and then continues up on its climb.
Oh, isn't that interesting? And we're going to have to continue that thought.
Artifact of reporting.
Oh my gosh! And we are going to continue that when we get back. But we've got to take a break, and I want to just tell all of you. If you're in Utah, make sure you head out to the Utah UFO Fest June 16th through the 18th. I am Erica Lukes. Thanks for being here tonight. We're going to take a break. We will be right back.
Stand by.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
With Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Gee, it's so quiet. Too quiet. Terribly quiet. Awfully quiet.
Do you have an hour to kill? Well, crank up those EVPs, spirit boxes, and walk the haunted halls of the unknown with UK's very own paranormal investigator, David Cook.
You guys ready for this?
The Ghostly Hour, live Sunday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern.
And now, you're mine.
Come hear first-hand accounts of some of the most famous ghost sightings, photos, and videos from around the world. Skeptics, believers, and spirits both good and bad. Welcome to The Ghostly Hour, hosted by David Cook. Live every Sunday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Now, broadcasting in digital HD radio.
What if maintaining a healthy weight was as simple as drinking a cup of coffee? With Valentis coffee, it's that easy. Harvested from the world's most pristine coffee farms and packed with the purest ingredients on earth, Valentis takes losing weight to a completely new level. At Valentis, we believe everyone deserves a chance to be healthy and fit. It's pure, natural, healthy, and delicious. Click the Valentis Healthiest Coffee banner on the KCOR Digital Radio Network website and take the Weight Loss Guarantee Challenge. Valentis Coffee, simply the world's healthiest coffee.
Paranormal, somewhere between abnormal and paranormal.
The U.S. military holds the ability to time travel.
Jeremy Scott asks the questions that we're all dying to know.
Wow, that's a remarkable question.
Watch your step. Hide under your blankets.
The show that is going to make you think.
Prepare yourself for what you're about to hear.
This transmission is coming to you.
You're riding into the Paranormal.
Live Saturday night, 6 to 9 on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Here's what happened on the last episode of Three Guys, No Ties.
All right, this dumbass criminal for today comes from the International File in Yiwu, China.
Okay.
Where the local police had set up a drunk driving checkpoint. Our dumbass spotted the cops and pulled over about 100 meters from the stop.
Warning.
He was drunk?
No, maybe a little bit.
Like
So what happened?
Stoned.
So what happened?
He jumped out of a Mercedes and scrambled up the hill before slipping and falling back down.
Oh, there's cops up there. Let me jump out of the car. They won't see me.
He then began pulling up grass and stuffing it into his mouth in an apparent attempt to disguise the alcohol in his breath. All this commotion attracted the attention of the cops, of course.
He might have been okay if he just didn't do that, right?
Even though he denied drinking and driving, he was taken to the police station where he flunked a blood alcohol test.
Three Guys, No Ties. Wednesday nights, 7 to 9 Pacific on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
You're listening to
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts.
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back, everyone, and happy Fantopia Friday. I'm Erica Lukes here on the best digital broadcasting network on the planet, KCOR, where tonight you are going to have the whole night of wonderful, talented women who will be rocking it out. We've got Tina Marie on restricted airspace and hyperspace with Solaris Blue Raven. So go grab a margarita, get in your jams and your jams. I've never even said that word before. That was kind of dorky, but whatever. We'll just roll with it. So anyway, you know where I'm going. Just get comfy and have a good time and listen to some good radio. I want to thank all my friends, David Cook, Jeff Cox, Susan, Libertas, everybody in chat, and all of you for listening all over the world. I get so many wonderful messages from people more and more every day talking about their experiences. And to me, I am doing this because it is so incredibly important to me to create a safe place for people to share experiences. And I really want to push things forward on the research front. I think that's imperative because the old school ways need to go. They're not accomplishing what they need to accomplish. So let's all do that together. I know we will. My guest tonight she's just written a book which is just off the charts. UFO Sightings Desk Reference, United States of America, 2001 to 2015. It includes data from over 121,000 sightings reports from Newfork and MUFON. This is very, very cool. So if you want to really learn about this, you can look at this book and then identify where certain hotspots are, and this is where we need to go. Cheryl, thank you for being here.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, I mean, my gosh, and we were talking about so many different things when we left off. Where do you want to start?
Well, let me give you a flavor of one. You'd think this book would. Well, the New York Times did a nice job with us, and that was a very special thing. It was a friend of a friend made a suggestion to Ralph Blumenthal, who wrote the article, and he friended me one day on Facebook, and I didn't know what to think of that. And he asked me to send him some charts from a couple of states, and I did. And I, burned them into PDF and sent them to him. And suddenly one day he asked me, he says, say you wanted to present to the New York Times, what would you present? And I said, those guys never write anything nice about UFOs, not in 70 years. And he said, how would you pitch it? What do you want out of this? And I said, hey, we've done something here. This was supposed to be my master's PhD work. And I got told by my academic advisor that it would meet with too much academic resistance and maybe I shouldn't do it. So I left the master's degree PhD program and did my research.
Good for you.
Well, I think, wait a minute now. I got my bachelor's degree at 62 years old.
Wow.
I'm 65. Wow. I had accumulated credit for 40 years, and finally, when I moved back to New York State, I found out that as a combatant veteran, which I am, that I could go to any SUNY university school for free for my college education. So I went into an evaluator, and they pulled in all my credit, and they said, you got enough credit to graduate. What we need is 30 credit hours of residency. I said, fine. And I said, look, I'm dyslexic. Just don't throw me any doorstops to read. I can't do that. But I said, beyond that, and she asked me if I wanted to do computer science because that's what I did at Lockheed Martin for 32 years. Okay. Actually 20 of the 32 years. Mm-hmm. And I made industrial films for 6 or 7 years too, because my background is filmmaking. And I threw my 5-page curriculum vitae at her, my resume. And I said, you'll find out all the military stuff and the Lockheed stuff's on the first page. The other 5 pages are my writing, performing, radio, and television that I've produced as, quote, my other 40-hour-a-week job.
I know. I just have to say you were so incredibly talented in many, many different areas. That's really, really cool to see.
So, well, that's where this whole thing came in. So she looked at it and she said, my God, maybe we should be leaning you toward a creative writing program. I said, no, that's too narrow. So I wrote out a justification, a way you could write your own degree program. And I wrote my own degree. My degree is a Bachelor's of Art in Entertainment, Writing, and Production. And it's the only one like it in New York State. It's now a template for others. And basically the whole flavor of it is to be able to write for radio, write for television, write for printed media, which I've been doing for the last 3.5 years. And if you'd told me 10 years ago I'd be writing a weekly column for an upstate New York paper, I would have wanted a case of whatever you were drinking. That was the last thing in my mind, But that's where it came from. And of course, the whole idea of my column came from, I was working for a paper after I was retired from Lockheed. And I still had a couple of years before I hit the 60, 65 and could draw my Social Security and that kind of thing. So I had a full-time job at a newspaper, but I was in the technical department. And I was part of the people. I made 1,000 printing plates a night, okay, for about 6-7 different editions. And the last edition was running. The presses were rolling. They were humming along. So I was just sitting there kind of Googling, and I looked at CNN.com. It was November 5th, 2012. And there was a little sidebar article that said, UFOs have been declining since the 1980s. Maybe they were all just an urban legend.
Oh.
Now, I'm well read. Since my first sightings as a kid and later as a young adult, I said, I read a lot of stuff over the years, but I wasn't exactly what you'd call a UFO activist or anything like that. Just well read. And I looked at that and I said, that doesn't feel right. So I was sensitive to the idea of misinformation. So I went to the MUFON site for the first time in my life that night. We had to work. This is like 11:30 at night. The presses were rolling. They were going to be rolling until 3:30. So I had nothing better to do unless the press broke,
Mm-hmm.
So I called up the thing, and I called up for maybe a dozen and a half years worth, just the total for the year. They had a way of doing a summary on there, and I dropped them. I wrote the numbers down on a pad and dropped them into a spreadsheet. Just did a little bar chart for 1990 through 2000. Okay, and the chart went up like a rocket. And my first thought that crossed my mind is what memo didn't the UFOs get?
Right.
And I said, that's nuts. So not long after that, I took a shot at maybe writing these little 300, 400 word articles. I wrote a couple based on, sightings that reports that I found buried in MUFON. And I did some with Newfork, that type of thing, just here in New York State. And I went to 12, 13 editors, and they got laughed out of the office. I had one editor look at me and say, "What brand of tinfoil do you wear on your head?"
Oh, jeez.
And it was very demeaning. One guy literally laughed me out of the office. Another guy just literally got up and grabbed me by the shoulder and pushed me out the door, So finally I went over to a weekly, and the guy had been a copy editor for the paper I was working for, but they had a big layoff, and he went someplace else and became the editor-in-chief. And I went in, sat down, and told him what I wanted to do. And before he would look at my slides, he pulled up a cup of tea for each of us and sat back and said, "So let's talk about the topic matter." And this guy was as well-read as I was on the topic. So we sat there and had a very nice conversation about different people we had read. And we're talking some of the old-timers like Frank Edwards and guys like that, So Dr. Hynek and all this type of thing. So finally he said, "Okay, show me your slides." I had 5 slides, told him what I wanted to do. He said, "Okay, fine." And it was kind of like he had a line kind of like the Dread Pirate Roberts from the Princess Bride,
Oh, I love that movie.
Well, he looked at me and he says, "Well, okay, I'm going to try you out for a month. 4 weekly articles." He says, "At the end of the month, it doesn't do so well. We'll dump you off the online edition." I said, "Fine." And remember, they were trying to develop the online edition at that time. This was kind of new territory for them. So he calls me in about a month later, and I said, "Okay." So came in, I figured that's it, it's over with. And I said, "So you're going to dump me?" He says, "Anything but." I said, "What do you mean?" And he says, "You've got more page views in a month than all of our columnists combined. The topic matter is hot. Keep doing it."
Oh, fantastic.
So about a month later, he had some kind of a meeting with all the columnists. And I came in. I was late because I had a problem with parking. And when I came in, he said, "Now there's our rock star." And I really felt very embarrassed about it because of the subject matter we were writing. Everybody else was writing practical, down to earth, day to day stuff. And so here's where we are. At that time, I was knocking down maybe 1,000 or 2,000 page views a week, and maybe 4,000 or 5,000 page views in a month, and that was still a lot over compared to the other columnists. And remember, this is an online edition. These days, I knock down about 5,000 to 7,000 a week. And sometimes more than that if the particular subject matter hits a nerve. I had one a couple of weeks ago. It was 16,000 page views. So, it's a good subject matter. They're happy. I've only had one article in the 3.5 years censored.
Well, do tell. Well, we do tell.
It was kind of goofy. It was almost sort of an April Fool's article. I'd been talking about disclosure, for weeks, and different other weeks. Every couple of 3 weeks, I'd do an article about disclosure, or I'd twist one of my other stories and put a disclosure angle on it. And I said, "So if disclosure does come, what can we expect?" It's kind of that after disclosure kind of thing, that Rich Donlin talks about, right? And I says, what it's really going to be? Everybody thinks about the political implications and the oil industry collapsing and everything. No. Suddenly, The ETs are going to be the fair-haired children on pop television. They're going to be on the Today Show and Good Morning America. We're going to see Whitley Strieber with the guys that abducted him on Ellen. We're going to have alien-inspired fashions. We're going to have alien-inspired perfume and makeup. All of this stuff. And I went down the list, and then the last thing absolutely is just, and we can't forget the legal community. We're going to have the late night ambulance chasers running commercials that sound like this. If you've ever been abducted, lost your job because you reported a UFO, had your cattle mutilated, called the law firm with us and such because of the intergalactic treaties we have now signed, you may be due financial compensation.
They censored that?
Yes. They said it would not do anything for the paper and wouldn't do anything for my credibility.
Oh, are you kidding me? That is classic.
The next convention I talk, it might be International Congress in February. The next convention I do, I'm actually going to take a copy of it and read it to the audience as my closing pitch.
Oh, I think that is hysterical. I think you absolutely shouldn't. I mean, it shows that you can make light of this subject and do it in a witty way. And that's important. I think all of us, we're trying to put into terms really complex things that have happened to us. And we have to use humor. And we have to use, and I think we just need to cope. Absolutely.
Well, when I went to the second Congress, this was the one I was speaking at, but I'm sitting there with press credentials, and they won't let you go to the experiencer meeting. They have that meeting in the morning is kind of like an AA meeting, and I asked if I could go, and they said, no, you're press, you're not allowed. So I finally, the second year I was there, I went to Yvonne, who was the shrink who ran the thing. And I said, look, I'll leave my press credentials upstairs. I'm not going to take notes. I just want to come in and, excuse the expression, experience it. I want to understand it. I'm not going to report anybody's stories. I just want to come and listen. And my spouse does too. And she gave us permission. Now, I was expecting to go into a meeting with 25 or 30 people crying in their coffee because they got abducted and were probed and all the stuff you see on the upper cable channels programs about people who have been abducted. I get in there, there's 150 people. They are up, they are pumped, and this thing had the energy of a tent revival. It was amazing.
Isn't that incredible? And I have to just ask you, because we had a question in the chat room, if you were an experiencer yourself. I know you've had sightings, but would you classify yourself as an experiencer?
I can't confirm or deny.
Okay.
Okay. We've had some suspicions, but there was when I was a talk host in Washington D.C. back 15, 20 years ago, there was a doctor who used to deal with this stuff, Dr. Constance Clear. She's deceased now, but she came in to do the show. And we had her in the studio, and she gave her little test to everybody, a little written test, multiple question test, to everybody in the studio. And 2 people got flagged as having been touched. Okay, myself and one of our producers. I didn't know what to make of it. Okay, so that's about all I can say about that topic. But I have a running joke I have with my friends who are experiencers. My God, if they're doing this stuff to us, why can't they give us free dental?
That's a good one. See, you need to be a stand-up comic, I think.
I tried that a long time ago. I think the biggest thing we run up here, one of the things we're running up against in this community is there's too many people who take themselves way too freaking seriously. The people, all the prominent people in this community that I gave a copy of the book to, okay, not a single one of them has sent me back a nice note.
Oh, dang it. Well, and and that is, oh geez. I mean, we could.
That doesn't count the 2 guys that wrote my forwards. Rich Hoffman and Dr. Spear. They were very, very generous. In fact, they've offered to help me with any additional projects. But nobody else, not MUFON, not Newfork, a small laundry list of other authors, nobody has returned a nice note to me. And Linda's been a little disappointed in that, why they're stiffing us. But, I'm sorry. Girls aren't supposed to do this. I forgot that.
Oh, I know. You know, us naughty women, we like to cause a lot of trouble in this field, don't we?
You want to hear a good one, though? You
yeah.
read that. You read the New York Times article.
Yes.
And there's a description in there of the little room where we worked. It's the warmest room in our 100-year-old house. And he made a very serious point of saying their computers are sitting amongst their sewing machines and cutting tables as they sew. Okay. And when that article hit the street, Vogue magazines, Vogue.com posted an article, and they took the best parts of it and posted their own article with a picture of some model staring off into the sky in this lovely dress. And but we realized it was because they realized we were sewists.
That's interesting.
So
I've got to see that article.
We used to. I'll send you the link. We used to own a fabric store. We used to own a designer fabric store for right up until about 2 years ago. The industry changed a lot with globalization, and our sources went under or went overseas, and we couldn't get the secondary mill end. So we were in the secondary mill end market, and we had to give up the business. Just couldn't get the resources. But we had a lot of fun doing it because we used to go in there on Sunday when the store was closed, and we crank up the rock music and use the big cutting tables to cut out our own projects.
Oh, how fun! That's so fun to be creative like that, and just to do your own thing. And I think it's an important thing. And me saying that says I just need to, for myself, get back to my singing. I've been such a slacker, but I think that's an important part of us.
It is. You have to express yourself in your artistic thing to balance all of this other head churning stuff, And let's talk numbers.
True. I know. We will. And I just want to ask a couple more questions from the chat room.
Anything you want.
So we had a question from Gil, and he was wondering, as far as the MUFON and the Newfork data, and I'm going to elaborate a little bit on this, but how easy was that for you to access, and what kind of process did you go through?
Well, okay, Newfork was easy. We made our plans in the fall of 2015. We cleaned up all those written processes I described, and anything that's on a web page, if you have Excel, you can theoretically download within Excel. You go into the data tab, and it gives you the ability to either pull from a web or from another database or something like that. And we just simply pulled it down. And what we did was we waited till January 1st, so all the 2015 data was in. Granted, you lose a little bit because sometimes there's a little bit of retroactive reporting, things like that, weeks and months later. But we assumed we'll just say January 1st, 2016. I was up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I started downloading each individual state. But you have to understand, on New Year's morning, bandwidth is fantastic on the internet because everybody's sleeping it off.
Well, not me.
Well, not me either. So I had all 50 states in the district all downloaded into the computer off the Newfork website. Now, understand that's the public displayed data. And I downloaded all of that probably in about 4.5, 5 hours altogether. Like I said, the bandwidth was really good. We started sanitizing. We had one spreadsheet for every single state. Okay, we had them titled special and everything, and we didn't try putting them together yet. We went in and had to start cleaning them up. We had to, the dates were messy. Anybody who's worked with Excel understands this. The dates can be a little goofy. We kept the hoax. Anything that was labeled hoax, we left it there because that's part of the statistics. Some amount of the sightings might be literally hoax, and the Newfork people are very good. Anything they think is a hoax, they'll label it as such a little parentheses in the description. I think sometimes they're wrong, but sometimes they're right too. So the cities are not spelled right. There's no county data. The shapes are different than MUFON's. Okay, things like that. So we had to do a lot of adjusting and tweaking and things. We already had a process for it, and then once we were done cleaning things up, we were able to go in and add county data. The process for adding county data I can't describe on the radio. It's proprietary to our business because we came up with a way where we can do it in hours versus weeks and months. So we have a really cool way of doing it. Now we were through all the New Fork data probably in about April. Okay, of 2016, and that's when we reached out to MUFON, and we had to go through a few hoops. I wasn't getting anywhere, and then we had the right guy on email. Linda finally called him up on the phone, and she's an executive, so she just talked executive to executive and had the database sent to me in 20 minutes and a handshake, and that was it, So they gave us a snapshot of it and of what we were only looking for 2000 through 2015, so it wasn't a big deal. And they gave us a snapshot. And of course, we had to go through the same cleansing process that we went through with the New Fork data. And then once we got them all stabilized, we started moving the information into the New Fork spreadsheets, and we put a column in there labeled New Fork data. And before we moved into MUFON data, we put a column in there labeled MUFON. So when we merged the two together and then sorted them by either city or county or whatever, we were always able to keep a perspective on where the data came from. The first thing we got rid of was the actual sighting data. Over in that far column, we got rid of that after we were done sanitizing. We just got rid of it. We didn't need it. All we wanted to know was what, when, and where.
And that's on that note, we're going to take a break, and that's incredible. And I've got so many more questions to ask you. I'm Erica Lukes here with Cheryl Costa. You're listening to UFO Classified, and we will be back on the other side of the break.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at ufoclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.
Now, broadcasting in digital HD radio.
The disc landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico, and the rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazil was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to the second half of UFO Classified. I am Erica Lukes. Always happy to be here, and every week I get in the chat room, the numbers are growing, and we are gaining listenership from all over the world. I'm getting messages from all of you. It is really cool to see. Keep messaging me and be active, because I'm here doing this for all of us. So I love it. Thank you all for listening. I want to say a very special hello to Tom Conwell, who is author of 2 books that I have in my hands. They are here, East Coast UFOs Volume 1, and they're here, Central U.S. UFOs Volume 2. And he has worked and is a friend with one of, my guest tonight, who I think is just absolutely brilliant, dedicated, and courageous. Cheryl Costa is joining me. She is hot on the heels of her New York Times article, which was huge, and the release of her new book, UFO Sightings Desk Reference, United States of America, 2001 to 2015. So welcome back, and you got to give a little shout out to Tom.
Hey, Tom, I hope you're doing well.
I know. We think about you both, and we're glad that you're here. This is really, really cool. So I just want to say that, Cheryl, the one thing that has really struck me about you is your willingness to share data. And I want to thank you for doing that, because far too often, in this field, we don't share things, and we're not going to learn anything if we don't share and then work as a community to try to figure out what we're dealing with. And for me to see now MUFON is kind of leaning towards this, the only people that can really access our data are people that are paying for memberships. And I was mentioning in the chat room that even when I was state director, I couldn't access all the data. So what do you think's going on here?
Well, they told me the same thing when one day I went in there, because I did my column every week, and I was always in there looking at things every week. And they told me, oh, it's only for members now. And I said, oh, guys, we got a little problem here. My editor and I have an understanding that if I'm paid member of MUFON, I have a conflict of interest because I'm a journalist. And so I worked something out with Jan Hardison, but the director. But I don't know where that's going to go next year. It's going to be good for maybe a year, and I don't know where I'll be next year with this thing. I hope they'll work out another arrangement. I did try to get them to give me CMS access, like an investigator has, and they insisted that I take the CMS course. Hey, I've got 2 full copies of the CMS course sitting right here on the shelf. The problem is, again, if that makes me technically in MUFON, and that's a conflict of interest issue, and that ethical issue as a journalist is a big deal, and so can't do it.
And to me, it's interesting. I've heard of other people trying to, access the data, and like I was saying, even as somebody who was state director, you couldn't get all of it. And for me, when you are kind of moving under the slogan that you are doing this for the benefit of humanity, I have to ask myself, if you're hiding data from the public, how is that benefiting humanity?
It's a strange question, and I don't want to get into too much MUFON politics, because again, I'm an outsider. But the one thing I must make clear to my book, MUFON data is not being. In fact, I had Jan Hardison. I told last summer, I spoke at the Orlando MUFON Symposium, and they scheduled me for first thing Sunday morning. Do you know how many people show up for a first thing Sunday morning presentation?
Exactly.
About a third of the convention, and nobody in the leadership showed up except Pete Robbins, who's keeping the trains running on time and coming out and introducing everybody, but nobody else came. So about 3 weeks before we actually had the book out, actually up on Amazon, I get this frantic call from Jan Hardison saying, "Oh my God, how did you get the data?" And I told him where it came from, who gave it to me. And I said, we went through a letter process, we went through a permissions process here, but there's an issue of confidentiality. I says, we didn't even have that information. I don't know Joe Blow reported this sighting. I don't know. All we got was dates, places, and shapes. That's all we wanted. And I said, everything that's in our book is derived from that data, but these are our own numbers derived from the combined databases. And we give them ample credit in there and call thanks to everybody. And so, because like I said, I had some troll in one of the rooms go after me a couple of days ago. Actually went after me a couple of weeks ago and said, "Oh, you stole their work." I said, "I didn't steal anybody's work. I used their public data, and I compiled a new piece of work." Now, right now, my problem is my attorney. You say share data, okay? I'm happy to tell you counts and things like this, but if you ask me to give you one of my spreadsheets, my attorney will slap my hand because right now, because we put some what we call proprietary process for how we actually crunch this stuff. It's considered proprietary data. I've got a professor over in Israel that wants me to give him certain information, but it happens to have my county data in such a way that it's my secret sauce and I'm not going to share it with them.
Right. But I don't think that you would, you would, I could call you up at any point in time and have a conversation with you and you would give me insight. And so there is some flow of information.
If you call me up and say, "Hey, I'm in Podunk County in Utah and I need a municipal breakdown," I will give you I'm happy to print out a PDF for you of the county, the surrounding counties, and a municipal breakdown of every single city that had a reporting or how many of them they had for those counties. I'll give that to any researcher or investigator in a heartbeat, but I will not be giving them my database because it's proprietary information.
Absolutely.
And Linda makes a good point on this because she's a librarian. If you were like a lawyer, and I know there's lawyers in the audience, if you sign on to LexisNexis, the clock starts ticking from the time you sign on to the time you sign off, and it's probably running about $500 an hour to use that database. Okay, databases just don't. I've had people come to me on Facebook and say, "Well, you should be giving this information to us for free. You should put it up on the internet for free." And I said, "Would you put 16 months of your work up on the internet for free?"
No, absolutely. And there is a delicate balance. Absolutely. And you bring up a really good point because I look at the past 2 years plus that I've done the radio show and I'm doing 15 hours of research. I'm doing, all of these, the website, the publicity, all of these things. And it's like we put so much time into doing this. And I do it for free. And I think it's my time. So our time should be valued. Absolutely.
Yes. And I think there's also this issue. I think we were talking about it on the break that, somebody made a comment about, well, you're just trying to make yourself out to be a top researcher. And I said, well, at this point of the game, I'm feeling like a top researcher because no one in the entire UFO community has ever produced a book of statistics in 70 years, at least in the non-classified environment. For all I know, they've got a book like this. In fact, I saw a chart back there many months ago when they declassified all that stuff back from the CIA back in January. I saw somebody pulling their hair out about something that Linda and I were pulling our hair out about, and they were doing it 70 years ago, and they were getting paid for it. I got ridiculed for it. So I don't know. I pull my hair out. This book is a product of 3 women. Okay,
I didn't know.
Actually, almost 4. Actually, let's say 4 too. All right. First thing is Linda and me. I'm the principal writer. Linda is editor, and the next writer in the pecking order. And Linda brought to this thing, besides being the editor, she kept me level on the scientific method that we were using. What were we trying to do? Because I've had people come, especially in the UFO community. "Oh, well, this book's useless. You don't have any proof." No. Proof is for someone else. We set out to prove that misinformation has been out there for a number of years that UFOs are declining is wrong. We have demonstrated beyond a doubt that they are increasing, and we can tell you where they're increasing. We can tell you what latitude they're increasing at. We can tell you what day of the week they're increasing at. Okay, things that nobody knew before we crunched this data. Okay, but that's what we did. And Linda caught something. She noticed that back when I was writing my column, and I still write it, I'm sorry, but we noticed that July and August were the peak months. My editor used to call it, as we were coming into June, July, he said, hey, this is the high season for UFOs. He'd always put a little note in the paper about it, and we assumed it was like that everywhere. No. You start moving down in the middle South, Maryland, Virginia, straight across the country to about San Francisco, and that middle peak in the middle starts flattening. You get down the deep South, it's statistically flat. Florida, Texas, Arizona, Southern California, Alabama. It's not Alabama, but Alabama, Mississippi. It's statistically flat. There's lots of sightings there, but they're statistically flat. And people are saying, what does this have to do with it? And I said, this is not about the UFOs. This is about the observer. And Linda kept making this point. 2 points she made. This is about the observer. And 2, correlation does not equal causality. Just because something looks like it's correlated doesn't mean that's the reason. Okay? But one day I was sitting there, I'd crunched all the data. She had my charts. She was putting it together in the other computer, the big computer. And I was sitting here writing some of the narrative for the front of the book. It was like 5 chapters of analysis and narrative. And she said, did you notice that there's a difference with the latitudes? And I didn't notice this when I did the charts. So I started looking at it, and oh my God, there it is. And it's dependent upon the latitude, where you are in the country at what season. So that was her. She caught that one, and that's her discovery. And of course, I've had people since that time when I mentioned it out like online or something like that. Well, duh, everybody knows that. And I said, no, not everybody knew that. Trust me, nobody knew that. Okay. And so that's something we came out with. Now, who are the other women? We had Charmaine Bowes. Charmaine Bowes, when we wanted to throw the towel in a couple of different times during the thing, Charmaine said, no, you can't do that. You've come too far. So she kept us honest and kept us back at the grindstone every weekend. Okay. And then one last woman, the woman who did our cover art. There's a flying saucer with the windows on it. We had that specially done. Her name is Susan Schneider. And boy, if you like dragons, she does some beautiful dragons. I mean, we're talking ink pen looking that's like an etching almost, right?
Wow.
And I gave her a couple of profiles, silhouettes from UFOs, from flying saucers from the 60s. Okay. And there were 5 of them. And I scanned them in, sent them over to her on Facebook and said, take a look at these. Give me a pencil rendition of each of them, your concept of it. Don't try and duplicate it because those are mechanical drawings. I want something that looks freehand, that looks like somebody sat down with a felt tip and showed us what they saw. Okay, and she said fine, and she sent them back over to us. They were in pencil, and we latched onto the one that's on the front cover, and it was one with the rows of windows around the center, kind of like the one Betty and Barney Hill saw. And when we liked it, we went back to her and said, okay, go ahead and do an ink job on it. They did. She did, and there it is. And I got the original artwork up here in a frame on my wall right now. So we can always go to her for a wonderful piece of art. Of course, she got paid well for it and everything, but there were 4 women deeply involved in this thing.
Well, that's incredible. I mean, that must have been really nice. And that when the book came out, and I think I remember messaging you saying, are you going to have a glass of champagne? I hope all of you had a nice glass. Oh, good.
We did. Actually, we had a couple of these little bottles of champagne. They're about the size of a beer bottle.
Oh.
We had a couple of. We have a little one of those little cooler refrigerators in the sewing room. For cold water or cider or something. And she when we actually pressed the button to release it on Create Space on the 24th of March, and it went live. We cracked open one of the little mini bottles of champagne. Each had a small glass. It's kind of fun.
That's awesome. You should be so proud of yourselves, all of you. I mean, because this is such a tremendous contribution for all of us.
Which is something kind of fun too, because if you do one of these things on CreateSpace, you can log into it anytime and see what your sales are currently. And we literally would almost always take a look at it before we go to bed and take a peek at it first thing in the morning with our coffee. It's the capitalist thing. We made money while we slept,
But that's good, though. And the New York Times article should have helped a great deal. I mean, that is such great publicity. And I know that
it was a tremendous kick in the pants. It really was. And what's also come out of it was a number of other press came to us and talked to us. I mean, the next morning, Times of London was talking to me. We had National Irish Radio did an interview with me this past week. Harper Magazine's and these are non-traditional magazines for something like this. I got 2 science magazines that are talking to us. Harper Magazine's talking to us. I got to go talk to Barnes and Noble on Monday, and that doesn't count the 6 television producers that reached out to us.
That is so incredible. I mean, you must be just still on such a high from all of that.
Oh yeah, very much so. Very much so. And what's nuts is that I still getting a trickle of people. I went out the other day. It was a little quiet here finally. I mean, I retired back in February, and I thought after the book came out, well, I'd be able to kick back a little bit. Since the book went live and since the press went live, I've been putting 8 and 12-hour days in. Just either keeping up with what there are people that now are expecting me to do the city edition of this data. Okay, we're going to do a shapes version of the manual that dedicates. You'd be able to give you the shapes that break down for every county for 15 years. That kind of thing, and it's going to be a really, really powerful piece of tool for anybody out there who's a researcher of any sort. And it was given a desk reference title because we wanted it to be a desk reference in a library right next to Jane's fighting ships over there in the reference section.
Well, that's wonderful. So that's what you're working on next, then.
Yeah. Well, it's going to take this whole cleanup process that I'm 20% into with 121,000 records. I have to do this in order to be able to do either one of those other projects. After that, it's a matter of dumping the data and cranking a report. So we're close. It's just going to be another month or so while I'm cleaning this thing up, a few thousand records at a time. But what's slowing things down is that the TV producers have had me chasing my tail every day. And so let us just say, I can't say who, I can't say when, but I can simply say something really cool is getting ready to happen.
Oh, great. Good.
Imagine ancient aliens except from the 21st century viewpoint.
I think that would be fantastic. And I think that honestly, we need some new UFO shows out there with different faces, because it's I'll sit down and I really want to watch a UFO show, but it's okay, I've watched you for the past 15 years. There has to be something new to energize this field.
Well, I think one of the producers was talking at length, and they're on the phone in New York or out in California. We're on the phone and having coffee and having a really deep discussion. And they said, "Do you have any particular pet peeves you don't want to see in the show if we do a show with you?" And I said, "No Roswell, no Rendlesham Forest, no Kecksburg." Okay.
Oh, God bless you. Thank you.
Don't you dare use the X-Files theme. It is cliche as hell. And I went down I had a little laundry list of pet peeves on this stuff, and I said, don't expect me to have wild hair like Giorgio or something. And
oh, come on. Whatever.
Well, no, I had to talk to one of these people, and I said, look, please understand something. If you decide you want to have me as a host, take a good look at that New York Times picture. I am a frumpy, transgendered, middle-aged lady here. I said, I I clean up nice, but remember, you're getting two frumpy middle-aged ladies here. They're, as I put it, two frumpy middle-aged ladies with AARP cards, I said, but the development producer who's working with us really closely right now came and met us. We spent 4 hours with this person on Sunday, Memorial Day weekend, sitting in a corner booth in Denny's. And we worked out a lot of stuff, and she looked at me and said, "By the way, you two look just fine. In fact, maybe this will have even more of an impact. This is coming from two people who technically are grandmothers. Maybe it will actually have more force being delivered by a couple of smart, folksy women." And I said, "Thank you," and we're okay with that.
Well, you know what? Whatever you do, you're going to totally rock it out, and I think that's important. And you're not the typical person that you would see in a TV show, and you've got a lot more to offer than most of the people you see on TV shows.
Well, I had to tell her. I said, "Believe me, I'm not Caitlyn Jenner." I said, "You're going to get me with my voice, and you're going to get me the way I look. I will clean up for you, but don't expect a Vegas showgirl here. I'm sorry, too many people think transgender people, you go through a gender change. We're open about it because the New York Times article outed me. Basically, my attitude on this whole thing is that, a lot of people think you go through the change and you turn into this Vegas showgirl, and that is not the case, and I wouldn't want that anyway. So, yeah.
Well, I think you're beautiful, and I think it's so fun to have a fantastic, powerful woman that is just that I really feel positive that something's changing, something's shifting, and we're all going to do that together. America Lukes, we're getting ready for our last break. We will see you on the other side.
Stand by.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
With Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Woven throughout the universe are keys to a hidden message, awaiting a voice that can decipher their coded meaning, a cosmic connection to the cosmos. Tune in to the KCOR Digital Radio Network at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern for Cosmic Connection. Cosmic Connection. Cosmic Connection. Cosmic Connection with astrologers Caroline Lynch and Merlin Wizard. Your weekly astrology reading is but a phone call away. So call Cosmic Connection, Sunday, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, and get your free reading today. Cosmic Connection with Caroline Lynch and Merlin Wizard, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. This is the world-famous KCOR.
That's the only station I listen to.
Monday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern, we take the KCOR Digital Radio Network off the grid and go deep inside the paranormal vault. Jump on the elevator and come take the ride down the rabbit hole of reality with BK Mojave and the Watcher as they unlock the vault and dust off some of their classified paranormal case files even the government doesn't know about. The Paranormal Vault, Mondays at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. This is the one show our secret government fears will speak the truth.
That's
Good.
Turn your radio up.
I love it. All the music I want to hear.
This is my station.
Friday night, 9 p.m. Pacific. Jump onto the Celestial Highway and travel at the speed of light. Into hyperspace. Hyperspace. Hosted by Solaris Blue Raven. She navigates you through the cosmic tides of mysticism into the world of covert technology, UFOs, mystical sciences, and the world of unforeseen forces.
You get to really sort of enjoy a bizarre ride.
Listen live, Friday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, for Hyperspace, the one show that blows the whistle off our government black ops projects. Hyperspace, hosted by Solaris Blue Raven. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Want to take a ride?
You're listening to UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts.
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back, my friends. This is Erica Lukes on UFO Classified. Next week, I just want to tell you, I am going to have Ron Regier on the show, and his specialty is Utah and petroglyphs. He works with MUFON and did when he was in Utah. This is going to be a really cool show because he's speaking at the Utah UFO Festival on June 16th. So if you're in the area, get down there. I am actually going to be speaking at the end of the month and the beginning of July. I'm going up to ESETI Ranch where I will be speaking and doing field research, which will be very intriguing. I'm excited to go up there and have the opportunity to be in a location that is incredibly active, do field research, and that is working into what I'm doing now, which is quite exciting, and I can't wait to share it with you, but I'm just going to give you a little teaser. I do have a non-disclosure, so I cannot talk about it, but I am researching with a large body of other researchers, the best in the world, some pretty interesting places. So I will keep you up to date on that. How's that for a little teaser? I bet you guys are all wondering what's going on.
Ooh.
I know. That's suspense for you. But you know, Cheryl, I just want to say again, I think the world of you. And when I saw that article in the New York Times, I mean, I was just like, yes, you know, and it was so cool to have my mom, you know, she taught me to be open-minded and to be intelligent. But, you know, when she gave that to me, she was excited too. So that's a big deal. Congratulations.
It is. Thank you. Thank you very much. Linda's a little on the shy side, otherwise she would have joined us. But
I know, Dave. I was going to ask you if Linda would just come on and say hello.
At a later date, she had kind of a rule with me. She said, I'm going to save my television appearance for 60 Minutes or Sunday morning.
Well, maybe I should.
That's her goal.
Well, you know what? I think that's a great goal, and I have no doubt that she will achieve it. So that's good. It's good to have standards.
Now, something special is sort of coming out of this that we need to talk about. This morning, I make these little graphic things that I put up. You've probably seen them on Facebook that I'll do. It'll be a block of graphic and it has text on it. And it talks about either some county they had a lot of UFO sightings, and it usually has a little teaser from a book or something like this. And I wrote one I had one a week or two ago that said, the average UFO book is in the collection of less than 200 of the 21,000 U.S. libraries. Help fight UFO censorship. As a local patron, ask your local library to place a copy of your favorite UFO book and the following book in their collection. And the following book is mine. Okay. Well, I've had that one up previously. Now, the one I put up this morning got a lot of likes on this one. The American press and media is as much a part of the UFO cover-up as the government. 3 top states for UFO sightings are California, 15,835, Florida, 7,787, and Texas, 7,058. 30 news organizations in these 3 states were approached with the statistics and the bigger story behind the numbers. 30 news organizations decided not to tell you. Get the facts for yourself. Buy my book.
And I'm going to buy your book, and I'm going to send it to you, and I want you guys to do what you've done with the one on your desk and just wear it and use it and then sign it and send it to me.
My favorite coffee shop, we made one out for them, and we wrote Cafe Cabal around the edge of the pages so that, nobody could walk away with it. And you see people going through it, and you sit there. I sat there on the couch one day watching some people going through it, and they're flipping through the pages, and I heard this kids sitting up there, this can't be legit. These can't be real numbers. Oh my God, they can't have that many of these things, And so we've seen people lose the color in their face going through the book. It's been kind of fun to watch.
That's so incredible. And I, we have another question in the chat room, but
can you hold that question for a moment?
Absolutely.
Let me finish this thought on the press.
Yes, please.
Before the New York Times article came out, I went to the principal television stations and principal newspapers of the top 2 principal cities in each of the 10 top states in the country. Okay, the top 10 states. And I went to over 100 organizations, television, radio, and printed press. Only one took me up on it. This was before the New York Times article. And the New York Times was not one of them. I did not reach out to them. Okay. That gives you an idea how much of a pushback there is. And we're in the process of fixing that. Okay. Did you watch the TV series Mad Men?
Off and on.
Okay. Did you know what a Mad Men advertising agency is?
Well, what? Actually explain that to in case people don't know.
In the 1960s, the people used to refer to the people the advertising guys who worked on Madison Avenue as madmen. Madison Avenue, madmen. Okay. Mad Magazine's also on Madison Avenue. Mad. Okay. All right. Linda and I have contracted a madman advertising agency, a real New York Madison Avenue advertising agency, and they are going to re-release the book with all the proper press releases to all the proper places, and it's not cheap, but they are going to make a rather significant splash. And since now we have a really nice library of press, including the New York Times and a WGN television piece and a National Public Radio piece that was done, we've got a lot of good stuff to bait people with, and that the advertising agency is currently working up their campaign for us to remarket the book in a higher, as they say, take it up a level.
Wow. That's incredible. And I want to ask, because you mentioned on the break that the 3 states, and that you had this major pushback. I mean, tell us more about that. And I mean, it's incredible to me that the media.
I reached out to the LA Times. They wouldn't touch it. I reached out to the San Francisco Chronicle, reached out to their science editor, and he came back and said, the LA Times guy said, I'll pass. The San Francisco science editor who was the science editor at the time said, the issue of UFOs was settled long ago. He obviously drank the Dr. Condon Kool-Aid. The only visual that I got out of LA was here's how it worked. 2 days after the book was physically released, an article I had worked on for 2 weeks with the Seattle Post Intelligencer, they call it the Seattle PI, had been done by one of their freelance reporters. He actually wrote 2 articles. Much to I did not know this. He had one for the Seattle PI, and then he also gave one a variant of it tuned for California's number, since that kind of came up in the interview, and he gave it to the San Francisco Gate website, which is San Francisco Chronicle's website. Okay. And, okay, fine. Yeah, I saw it there the day that the thing went up on Seattle PI. And, oh, yeah, I Googled it, and there it is on San Francisco Gate. I didn't think much of it. And then about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I get a telephone call from KBC Radio in LA telling me, this is a talk radio station, telling me that the article about our book had set the internet on fire out there. We had made the Drudge Report. And I'm going, oh, my. It said, can we have you on our afternoon drive show? Of course, afternoon drive in California, it's like 7 o'clock at night for me. But I said, sure, we'll do this. And that's kind of what happened. But when I reached back out to LA, everybody had to put in a story about it. Half of them were copying information off the San Francisco Gate or the PI article, and they were going out to New Fork and pulling down their own information. And the LA Times quickly put something up, and all the wrong numbers were there, and they credited our book. Okay, and I've never been able to get anybody from that paper to call me back, because I told them, you made a mistake, guys, and you put my name to it, and they haven't touched it. Okay. I reached out to all the 4 major networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox, in San Francisco, LA, Phoenix. Phoenix, you want to hear the inbred story there?
Oh, yeah.
NBC, CBS, and Fox are all in the same newsroom.
Oh. That's
okay.
interesting.
They share a common newsroom, and then I reached out to the equivalent paper in Dallas and the major stations there, and the major stations in Houston, and in Miami and Orlando. Okay, and not a peep. In fact, the one in Phoenix, it was 3 weeks before 3 or 4 weeks before the Phoenix riots. My book actually hadn't even come out yet. And I went to them and say, your 20th anniversary of the Phoenix Lights coming up in the next couple of weeks. I hope you're going to do something. And, oh, by the way, you have that story from 20 years ago, which like the modern numbers, like Phoenix is like number 2 as a county, or the Maricopa County is number 2 in the country of 3,027 counties. That's a story. They didn't touch it. You know what they did for their story? Oh, yeah, they did about a minute or their 4-minute story about the Phoenix Lights, and then they spent the next 3.5 minutes of the article talking about the poor councilwoman who lost her job. Don't let this happen to you. You report a UFO, you lose your job.
Oh, geez.
That was the whole tone of it. And like I said, nobody from Texas, nobody from Florida has talked to me. And we have reached out. So again, we've contracted a major advertising firm, and they are getting ready to re-release us and rebrand us.
Oh, I'm so excited for you.
This is This is disclosure of the unusual kind. See, what they didn't realize. Well, the New York Times article made it seem like Linda and Cheryl, just a couple little ladies in upstate New York. What they didn't really grasp was the fact that I had been doing media for 30 years. I knew the business as well as they did. So this is what we're doing.
Well, and it's thrilling, because I honestly feel, and I don't know how you feel about this, but something has shifted. And I think with not only Robert Bigelow's interview on 60 Minutes, but your New York Times piece, and just, little bits and pieces that NASA's putting out there. I mean, there's something that is happening, and it seems to be kind of quickening it's exciting.
Yeah, you got your finger on it. You really do. I can share this one thing from the thing we had with a television producer recently. She flat out looked at us across the table and said, "Your book has caused shockwaves in the media business." And I looked at her and I said, "Look, it's just a book on UFOs. Everybody thinks it's silly and trivial." You know, I mean, in the back of my head, I know it's been classified higher than the H-bomb since the 50s. But I said, are you really serious? It's just, no, you have no idea the amount of people this book has rattled. And that New York Times article, New York Times never spoke nicely about UFOs in 70 years. And suddenly they say they're everywhere. And this book proves it as a headline. And they do a nice job of reporting you two people. And they did. They vetted us on the phone. Then they sent a reporter up here on the train. He spent a day with us and most of an evening in an Irish pub talking the topic matter. We were with this guy for almost 12 hours. He vetted us very carefully, made sure we weren't living in my mother's cellar, and amazingly enough, he was well read on the topic matter. He was looking at this picture was taken in my we have a library in our house. Librarian. What do you expect?
Yeah,
we have 1,500 nonfiction books in the house, and the library has probably 1,200 of them. And he was sitting there looking at the UFO books, and he's pulling them out a little bit, pulling them out like about an inch. He says, "This is a first edition. This is a first edition. This is a first edition," and he's pulling them out, And I said, those are first editions? He says, "Yeah, I have them." So this particular reporter knew the topic matter well. And he carried some weight with those editors and said, "We need to do this." And he believed the same thing I did. When those CIA documents came out, declassified from 70 years ago, it said the government was really seriously concerned about these things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I mean, I've got one right here in my computer. It was the director of the CIA. Saying we've got to get to the bottom of this.
Oh, absolutely, and we've got somebody in our chat room who is probably he is the world's foremost archivist with regard to all of this and CIA documents, and he's been on my show before, and so yeah, I mean there are some heavy hitting documents, and I just want to not to interrupt you, but I think that for all of you who are listening out there, if you can grab onto one of these pieces and run with it. And if you want to learn how to be an archivist, get in there, do FOIA requests, do what Cheryl's doing, do statistical analysis. I mean, each of us could make this field so much better by doing our part.
It's interesting. In the last couple of weeks, I've actually had several people call me up on the phone and say, "Hey, I live in such and such. We happen to have a database with 70,000 sightings in it. Would you like a copy of it?" I said,
wow.
"I mean, it's not from these other guys." He said, "No, it's not. It's something we were keeping here locally in our local club, So I had one guy send me a disc, another guy email me something, another guy had to literally send me a copy of DOS so I can take one of my old Pentiums in the back room and load up DOS and run this database on DOS. So we're actually going to have some amazing data here, and we may do a retro book, who knows?
That would be great. And I mean, would you ever, because Barry Greenwood has become a dear friend of mine, and I respect him so much. And I look at what he and Jan Aldrich and the people from QFOS and different people have done. In their goal is to really get all of this in one database, so future generations can have access to that, and then hopefully try to pick up the pieces when we've all passed on. But I mean, would you ever be open to doing something like that in the future?
Yes. Duke University is taking my papers. So all my research work is going to be archived at Duke when I'm dead.
And this is something that I've talked to Barry at length, and sometimes, and I know that David Marler has done the same thing with all of his archives, but sometimes when the universities get involved, that means that you don't have access.
Well, yes and no. This is called a special women's collection at Duke. The reason they approached me originally was because I was one of the early activists in the transgender movement. there's been a lot of revisionist history since that movement got going. But the bottom line is, anybody who really knew anything about it knows that I was among a dirty dozen of people who did a lot of the early activism and took a lot of the risks of going on, like Phil Donahue and Gary Collins' Hour magazine, things like that. Back in the 80s. Okay. In fact, it was so funny because when I was in the late 80s, I was getting my clearance re-updated. My government security clearance was being updated, and the guy was going to take my clearance away because I was mid-transition at the time. Okay, from male to female, and he said, "Well, we're going to take we think you can be blackmailed," because the people in the office didn't know what was going on. My boss did, but nobody else did. And he said, "Well, you can be blackmailed." I said, "What if I could fix that?" And he said, "I don't see how you can, but okay, I'll be back in 3 weeks. I'll probably turn off your clearance at that time, but if you want to try and show me you can fix it, fine." So I came back, 3 weeks later, and I threw a VHS tape on the desk and said, "On the blonde on Phil Donahue, I'm the redhead on Gary Collins' Hour magazine." And he just, his jaw dropped on his chest. He said, "You came out on national television?" I said, "I can't be blackmailed. And oh, by the way, I made copies of this and I gave it to the guys in my shop, and they're at home watching it with their wives."
Good for you.
And then they sent me to a Department of Defense certified shrink to determine whether or not that was bad judgment. And that shrink said, "You're saner than the people who sent you here." And they ran me through a full set of psychologicals, and they came back and said, "A perfectly healthy woman took this test. What else would you like to know?"
Oh, that is rad. And I have to say that it gives me the chills to hear you say that, and that you've been through so much. And I wanted to say, as a woman who's been in this field not nearly as long as you have, I've definitely experienced things. I mean, what is your advice for women in the field? Because there is absolutely this. I mean, it's a lot of sexism going on, and it's very detrimental to what we're trying to do. What is your take on that?
Don't let the bastards get you down.
I mean, how are we going to change this? Like, I came into this, and it's like you've got these factions of people that have been allowed to maintain these positions of authority, whether it's on a network, a radio network, or, in an organization, or just a general researcher. And it's like, wow, how do people, we can't behave like this.
Well, think of the most prominent radio show that talks about this topic out there. They won't talk to me. Starts with Coast. Yeah.
Well, not that you gave it away, but
no, they won't talk. They won't talk to me. They won't talk to me. So, and there's been people that have actually advocated on my behalf to them, and so I'm getting a wall. We're all getting a wall of silence. And that might change. Maybe they're scheduled up. I don't know, but we would have thought the New York Times article would have moved them. So, but the bottom line to anybody who wants to get into this thing, don't get into the same niche as everybody else is. Don't go start researching. Any crash that's already been already been written about. Go find your own niche. When I first said I was doing statistics, I got a lot of blank stares, and a few people laughed and snickered. Well, Verna Rubin, the famous astronomer who discovered that the galaxies are flying apart at astronomical speeds, and nobody believed her until they confirmed it. And when she first told them that she was doing this, everybody got down on the floor laughing and rolling. They just thought this was fantastic. And she made the comment that you always know you got a nice niche subject when everybody laughs at you. Don't let them get you down. Don't let the trolls in the social media get you down. Just go out there, find that little niche you want to do, and research it to death and science it to death.
Absolutely. And then also, I think that it's important that we have a sense of camaraderie. I think that it's important that we don't, in fact, I had one researcher, I know we've got to get ready for show close, but somebody that I respect that, is a woman who basically just, we're not going to talk about it. We're not going to acknowledge that sexism is happening and that, women have been abused in the field. And I just thought, oh, wow. I'm not going there because I think we need to talk about it. We need to get it out in the sunlight. And I think that by talking about some of these, really, the racism, the sexism, I think these are important things, and I think we can do it together.
Well, Linda and I made a commitment to, if we do end up with something real special out there in the media, we've made a very, very serious point. We want to reach out to women researchers and knowledgeable women researchers, and we want to show a range of diversity. I used to be in the diversity business in the major corporation. I started the GLBT organization in Lockheed Martin back in the bad old days of the late.
It's even, I've got to get you back on the show because you've got 30 seconds.
Well, 30 seconds.
Oh, yeah. Okay, where did people find you?
Well, the bottom line, where did they find me?
Well, or the bottom line. Oh, shoot, there goes the music. But everyone, Cheryl Costa, I will be posting her link to her book, and I just want to say thank you so much for being here. Next week, join me with Ron Regehr. All of you be safe, and I love you guys. Have a good weekend.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at UFOclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcast.